of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents the Broadcasters Podcast, where we dive deep into the media industry headlines and dissect the digital disruption that diverges the masses into the new media counterculture and away from the media establishment. Here is the king of podcasts. Welcome to episode 187 of the Broadcasters Podcast. And for those of you that enjoy hip-hop and R&B in the 90s, you might remember a duo called the Out There Brothers. Your love is like a 187. Maybe you remember, I don't know, but that kind of just shows my age. Thanks for joining me on KOP. Tonight, we're going to talk about influencer marketing. Kind of just that random rotation that comes back in because it's fascinating. When you look, before I get into the stories tonight, I want to go ahead and come across and say that looking into all of the media that we have right now and all the opportunities we have in media for those content creators, the winning market right now is social media and streaming. Anything internet-based. With all the major streamers being positioned and funded greatly and highly resourced by major corporations, they are struggling badly and continue to lose the war every day. Where you see a number of producers and people that are able to go and produce great content today getting signed off to the likes of Netflix and other places altogether. I mean, you think about Ryan Murphy not too long ago getting that. Courtney Kemp, who creates the Power Universe, has just signed a new deal where she's going to be producing content over there. And then some of the shows that are on that are still around are getting towards their end because you can't just keep going. Better Call Saul is going to be finishing up. Walking Dead, you just got a lot of shows like that. And then you have shows that are going to be prequels or sequels or bringing shows back. Try to do something to keep things going. But it's changing altogether. Only live content right now is really what's propping up, if at all, programming that's on network and cable TV. Live sports still holds up strong, and that will be the catalyst that will continue to keep network and local TV and cable TV somewhat relevant. But everything that's going on, the counterculture is alive. And I don't want to put politics into it, but I think the way that the pandemic was portrayed on traditional TV has hurt immensely. When you look right now, you look at all the influencers, they're not masking up. They might be going out and doing things. We still can't travel yet, but that's going to change at some point. Wait till the travelogues come back for some of these influencers of what they're going to be able to do soon. But then you also have to say, there's just so much that you look at of the changes that happened. And saying, and I talked about MTV last week, the 40th anniversary, which was actually August 1st. That is kind of the epitome of what the 80s and 90s into the 2000s, that's really the kind of community that the influencers come from. The MTV generation, which lasted 81 to about 2001. That's really the generation that grew up on, and then the outshoots like a Nickelodeon or all the animated series that all these Gen Zs and millennials were watching leading up to now, and just looking and saying the changes that are going on, the effect they have. They're not affected by all the other things that we're watching, like the pandemic and the way people were put to fear or to be angry or to ridicule. Let's just say now that politics at some point there were certain things where people would say that something in politics, some political classes, some people that are very strong in political following politics, that was considered counterculture in 2000. It's not anymore. The influencers are now, because they don't care about politics. They don't care about this kind of reality that's being put out there in front of us that everybody's supposed to go ahead and follow and just grin and bear it. The idea that vaccinated or not vaccinated, lockdown or no lockdown, mask or no mask. And it's not, that's the media's part, the news media, which people are neglecting more every day. But then you look at our television and you look at how a lot of TV shows, you look at daytime, you look at the morning news shows, you look at the late night shows, and some of the things where they could have to continue to try to create that pandemic reality, this alternate universe, it feels like. Because some people, they look, we're still doing Zoom calls. We don't have people in the studios. We might have people on the stage, but they might be wearing, or they might be in the audience, but they're wearing masks. Like Hollywood has not switched over to where it was because they have to continue the narrative because of what's being asked of them to do. They have to do it. And I would imagine some people don't want to be doing that anymore. And as long as that pandemic narrative continues in Hollywood, on our television, I mean, the comforts of watching television and having it be a place to escape or to suspend disbelief, when a lot of TV shows and a lot of places, they decided to go ahead and just make it front and center. The pandemic rules our lives, that we must live in this new normal. Well, the truth is, a lot of people are just rejecting it. They want to just go back to where they understand that COVID-19 will always be a part of our lives. It is another flu. It's another flu-like virus that we must protect ourselves from on a constant basis going forward. It is something we have to deal with going forward, period, because it's not going to go away. And the criticisms or the calling out of seeing numbers and cases and all this kind of stuff, where it's being amplified. You know, the fear and the pitch is being amplified, but you're not seeing the deaths being shown, or you're seeing other things. I'm not disputing it at all. What I'm saying is right now is that we don't have to be acting like we're in a pandemic now. We need to start acting like this is a normal thing, and that we go back to normal lives with this in our lives. That's all there is to it. And people that want to watch television, listen to radio, watch movies, listen to music, they don't want to be caught up on all that. For the most, there are some that are going to absolutely be embedded in it in their lives. They want that. They want to be staying in their homes. They want to be locked down. They want to be masked. They want to be clearly disinfecting themselves for the fear of ever catching this dreaded disease, this dreaded virus. Got it. And some, because they're not vaccinating, and some feel like they are, and there's just this constant ongoing variation that, variants are going to continue to happen. Well, how about just the fact that we're going to have it here, and it's just a part of life? I mean, people just can't expect, the rewind button to be hit. We're not going back to the way it was. But like I said, there were a lot of things that changed here. What the real truth is, what I'm trying to bring up on the show here, is that because of the decline that the digital disruption created, which I've been documenting on the show since the start of 2018. Well, now, 2.5 years into the show, the pandemic escalated it, accelerated it. And now that we're out of this more than ever, you would hope that mainstream culture would kind of revert back to where things were and let the media continue to go and do what they're going to do. If they're going to put out propaganda, if they're going to continue to take the narrative, because they think, well, you know what? If it bleeds, it leads, doesn't work anymore. Showing murders and rapes and homicides and accidents, deadly accidents, it's not working anymore. That doesn't satiate the audience. They're desensitized. COVID, hospitals, cases, deaths, all the things that are around it, mandates. What's going to happen to your kid in school? What's going to happen at your job? What happens when you go back to the office? What happens when you go to a concert? They have lots of questions to ask, which they just want to amplify the fear. They want to amplify it. They want to put you at a point where you're scared to leave your house, and that all you could do is get Uber Eats or get groceries delivered to your home and watch their news all the time. Look at daytime TV. Everybody's still on Zoom calls. You look at Price is Right and Let's Make a Deal. All their tapings are still done under pandemic, social distancing feels. I mean, you still have all that. You still see the sports broadcasts where on ESPN you're seeing everybody's got to be masked up. Everything's social distance, all of it. Like, it's to create the look. It's like this is part of where things are. And people are rejecting it. I'm not here to say it's right or wrong. But the audience speaks loudly. And because of what they're doing, then the result is that people are going to just decide to go somewhere else to watch their content. They're going to consume their content somewhere else. The popularity of TikTok is indisputable. 1 billion subscribers worldwide. Is that how many subscribers I saw last time? Was that the number that I quoted before? I mean, at this point, I am so embedded. I mean, I have looked at my digital well-being, and I can tell you I usually watch TikTok videos probably about 4 or 5 hours a day. Sometimes before I decide to turn on the TV to watch something, I'm watching TikTok, or I'm watching YouTube, for that matter. It's crazy, but that is where we are. And there's so many stories that you can see. There are some people that are online with blogs or, some newsletters, people out there. You see that's going on where they're trying to go ahead and continue to get people to go and watch. Oh, actually, 689 million global active users. It's like 1/10 of the world. It's like one in every 10 people have TikTok on their downloaded. That's wild. And it has only grown faster. It's crazy. YouTube, how many subscribers do they have? Another anomaly. It's just been around for so long, and they have not lost their spot either. YouTube has approximately 1.86 billion YouTube users. The advertising is all going to YouTube and TikTok. Some cases, Instagram. Some cases, Facebook. Instagram users, 1.074 billion. Facebook users 2021, we're talking about 2.89 billion. And you look at Twitter, same thing goes. 192 million daily active users. It's incredible. And 199 monetizable daily active users. That's what's going on. The audiences where advertising has to go to get themselves noticed is through social media or dynamically inserting and geo-targeting ads in streaming. Pre-roll ads or predetermined ads within a show. That's where advertising is. That's where the money has gone. Except for the fact that some live programming that's still around and a couple of shows that might still get a little bit of an audience, a trickle of an audience, but nothing close to where it is. It's dominance. So the stars of now and the future, they're micro stars, micro influencers, macro influencers. With an audience and a follower and just a fan base, some in the billions. And it doesn't take much talent to get there. But you find a gimmick and you run with it. And that's what goes on. Right now, I'm trying to figure out myself. It's just a fascination. For myself, I look at what content I try to create myself. I have a good stranglehold on podcasting. I've done it for a long time. Over, between 10 and 15,000 podcasts in my career since 2005. And not to mention, over 1,000 podcasts of my own that I produced myself since 2012. I'll talk about over 400 of What I'm Not Podcasting, 632 of the Wrestling is Real podcast, and 187 of this show, Broadcasters Podcast. And now I started a new series on TikTok, which I also publish on Instagram and IGTV, Podcasting 101. 1 minute tips. I'm trying to find whatever it is that will grab the audience and see what they do. See what comes to them. And so I've been doing it. And, there's something to be said about that's where the motivation is. That's where the action is. Online. Like, what is there this aspirational and traditional media now? I mean, is anybody looking to be a journalist? There's still room for movie stars, but, movie stars are starting to get a little bit of their cut taken away from what's going on. Musicians also feeling jilted because they're getting their sales taken away because of streaming. Like, Hollywood, music industry, and television, they're all at the feet of digital, of online. They all have to serve at the feet of social media, of streaming media, and what this digital disruption has created. And at the forefront. Now, you're still going to have professional, trained actors, actresses, hosts that are still going to have room for that for certain programs, but it might just be on streaming. Or if the programming can be made to get on streaming, because what they have to figure out when it comes to for network and cable to survive, they have to find a way to make themselves a home in the same form on digital. And they have not figured that out yet. Somebody has to create everything that can be put on a remote control, and you can remote control different things on the internet. You can do some of that now, but not as easily as you could with DVR service and things like that. They have not, the cable, there are still a couple of things that cable provides that streaming media can't provide yet. They're trying. When it comes to live content, streaming hasn't gotten all the way there yet either. And for local news and content, that hasn't gotten there either. I mean, you can see bits and pieces and portions of that content online because they're repurposed by all these local network and cable entities. But then after that, they just can't put their whole content and shove it up online. They can't do it yet. That's the missing piece for them. So they're going to have to go digital themselves. The traditional line, the terrestrial line, radio in a certain current form, they have to find a way there too. I don't know if they're going to figure it out. But, well, they already have it. Listen, for the longest time, radio's been able to be on streaming for a long time and be there and have their own people, that are trying to get themselves on social media to become influencers themselves to try to build up an audience. Especially younger stations, the CHRs, the alternative stations, geared to a younger audience. They're trying, but what they have to do is they have to get rid of the ads. They have to get rid of the ads. And they also have to stay with the times and follow along with what is going on online. I mean, the best example is BBC. BBC Sounds is an amazing app. Arguably, BBC Radio 1 is one of the stations I actually listen to quite a bit. Of radio that I listen to now that's terrestrial, I listen to BBC Radio for 3 hours a week, specifically for the chart countdown, the official chart, where it's a 2-hour show on Fridays, which I can look forward to as I record this on Thursday night. Looking forward to tomorrow. Scott Mills hosts the show. 4 o'clock GMT, which is 11 o'clock Eastern here. And if I don't catch the show live, then I will go ahead and listen to the podcast because they put all their shows down as a podcast. So that show immediately becomes a podcast shortly after, or they have the First Look Countdown, which is like the midweek chart, and that's an hour-long show hosted by Vic and Katie, and they have that, and it's great. And so you have all that right there to work off of, and that's 3 hours of just great radio. Impressionable hosts, good feedback and interaction with their audience, doing a lot of text work. They talk to musicians, they talk to music that's behind the music, the people that are on the charts. And they do such a great presentation across the board. BBC Radio is just fantastic. And BBC is general, and other of these, these state-run networks that are in other countries, they have figured a way to get themselves online. So BBC has a lot of their content online, and you can find a lot of their stuff online. And a very strong digital footprint. Like I said, that Sounds app. You want podcasts, you want music, you want playlists, they got it all in one. That's almost competitive as Spotify, except the music I can't listen to because it's geo-targeted. So you got to just be able to change the IP if I can. But either which way, that, and also have a station to listen to that does reggaeton and urbano music. It's very Spanish-based, called Turbo 98 out of Dominican Republic, because it's just such a unique format. They do have live talent on there, and they do have commercials, but the commercials are so different because they are lots of jingles. They kind of cover songs that are very familiar. So like when you listen to the commercials, whether it's like 5, 6, 7 minutes on that station, everything is jingles. Everything is spicy, exciting, a lot of lottery commercials because there's a lot of that going on over there, and that's where a lot of the advertising comes from. And then you hear just an excitement of the commercials. They're not just plainly made. It's not like your run-of-the-mill progressive commercial, just trying to be cute. They're actually making an effort on the ads. And when they're done, they're done. They're not just trying to fill a void and say, okay, we need to have 8 minutes of commercials. We're going to have promos as well embedded in it to make sure we keep that 8-minute slot. No, when they have their commercials, when they're done, they're done. Sometimes they're 2 minutes long. Sometimes they're 7 minutes long. But when they're done, they're done. And they jam-packed music, a couple of talk segments where the jock will kind of talk up something like a liner, or take about 30 seconds, or take some calls, or take some feedback, whatever. And that's it. Pretty simple. And so that station I like to listen to a lot. And that's what radio should be. You can still have ads, but make the ads compelling, and then have the ads run only as long as you have them. If you have enough ads, run them. But when you're done, you're done. You don't just block out time just to block out time. And you don't, take this whole thing of making good of ads and taking all these national ads and just running them over and over again because you have to hit a certain amount. And you got to make sure that those ads get a cost per measurement. For what? The nickel and dime. These are the issues that are going on with traditional media, and they have to learn. So everybody has to learn to go digital and to transform what they're doing right now to it. HD radio is not going to be the answer. Radio being available on the smart speaker, yes. Available on every device, yes. When internet is available in the car, it will ultimately change the face of radio because an FM and AM become extinct. When internet is truly available in the dashboard of every car, and it's not even a Bluetooth thing where you cut that middleman out, that connection point, it changes. It becomes different. It's just a matter of time before this digital disruption really consumes, and this counterculture that is as a result of the digital disruption truly takes over. There will still be a mainstream culture, but they will not have the stranglehold that we have. But then that counterculture becomes part of the culture. I mean, pop culture is controlled in the counterculture. Pop culture is really controlled. It's contrived and controlled by traditional media. But the real pop culture people care about is through social media and through influencers. That's where things are right now. That's at least where I think it is. A lot to take in. So let's go into some stories. Got a handful of stories to get into tonight. Interesting story for The Conversation. They talked about 5 mistakes that the stars and the brands who sponsor them should avoid. I'm going to run this down really quick. Here's what we got. So using social media celebrities to advertise products or influencer marketing is lucrative, a rapidly growing industry, worth up to $15 billion in the U.S. by 2022. Influencers profit from their online fame by collaborating with brands, endorsing products to their followers in return for a payment for free goods and services and experiences. Some influencers are established stars seeking an additional income stream. Now, Cristiano Ronaldo charges up to $1.6 million for an endorsement on Instagram. Others have found fame on the reality TV show like Love Island, which can spark a barrage of endorsement deals. But among the most successful influencers are ordinary consumers who have risen to fame on social media, often within a specific community. For instance, Zoella's makeup hauls gained traction in the YouTube beauty community, earning 11 million channel subscribers. Clean influencer Mrs. Hinch has 4.1 million Instagram followers eager for cleaning tips. Now, The Conversation studied consumer responses to brand endorsements. Their research revealed that because fellow members of a wider online community played a key role in the rise to fame, these influencers were seen to have distinct responsibilities to their viewers. And brand endorsements fail to take these responsibilities into account. If they don't, they could backfire, causing reputational damage to both the influencers themselves and the companies they represent. So they have the 5 most common influencer marketing mistakes that they identified. Inadequate disclosure, where influencers are expected to clearly disclose endorsement activities to their viewers and knowing them to distinguish them from organic content. Next is inauthenticity. Some followers felt influencers had a responsibility to ensure the majority of their videos were organic and unbiased by endorsements. And being sensitive to the ratio of organic to endorsed content on the influencer's YouTube channel, responding negatively when product promotion began to dominate. Overemphasis, where influencers are seen having a responsibility to provide valuable content, and that followers are critical of brands they believe they're taking a high level of control over the influencer's content, particularly where this detracts from viewer enjoyment. Next, brand fatigue, where influencers' responsibility to provide valuable content was also jeopardized when brands commissioned many influencers within the community to post similar endorsements in quick succession. Yeah, everybody piling on the same product. The next big thing, overindulgence, number 5. Fans felt that influencers receiving excessive amounts of freebies, such as luxury holidays and large quantities of free merchandise, made any resulting endorsements less trustworthy. And consumers even complained that the cost of these expensive influencer incentives would increase the retail price of the brand's products. Yeah, probably true. So there's that part that you got to consider. And this is some of the negative things you got to just keep in mind of what's happening here down. We talked about how, traditional media is trying to go and use influencers that are kind of embedded. Like, we know there are influencers out there that are there and created to fit a narrative and to also bow to the will of the culture, of societal, political, cultural, political norms. That's what they're made to do. New York Times reports on the fact to fight vaccine lies, authorities recruit an influencer army. So they mentioned about Ellie Zeiler, a TikTok creator with over 10 million followers, receiving an email from Village Marketing, an influencer marketing agency, on behalf of the White House. And she's a high school senior who usually posts short fashion and lifestyle videos. Would she be willing to participate in a White House-backed campaign encouraging her audience to get vaccinated against the coronavirus? In the email, he said, there's a massive need to grow awareness within the 12 to 18-year-old range group. We're moving fast, and we only have a few available slots still, so let us know ASAP. So reaching these young people to get vaccinated The White House has enlisted an eclectic army of more than 50 Twitch streamers, YouTubers, TikTokers, including 18-year-old pop star Olivia Rodrigo, and all of them with enormous online audiences. State and local governments have begun similar campaigns, paying local micro-influencers, those with 5,000 to 100,000 followers, up to $1,000 a month to promote COVID-19 vaccines to their fans. There's been bribing, there's been incentivizing that has not worked. So now the thought is the White House, hey, I get it, but is it going to work? Will it make a difference? Is it going to look insincere? Much like the story from the conversation. You know, brand fatigue, overindulgence. Like when you tell the endorsement is not organic. The same thing the conversation said, that's exactly what's happening here. The White House began considering the power of online creators in January, repurposing the influencer marketing tactics that President Joe Biden used on the campaign trail toward promoting vaccinations. And the Biden administration has rolled out influencer discussions with Dr. Anthony Fauci of the NIH and brought Olivia Rodrigo to the White House, where she urged people to actually get to a vaccination site. Dr. Anthony Fauci also participated in an Instagram Live with Eugenio Derbez, a Mexican actor with over 16.6 million Instagram followers who have been openly doubtful of the vaccines. And there was a debate that they both had because there was a hesitancy to take the vaccine. State and local governments have taken the same approach. Colorado in February awarded a contract worth up to $16.4 billion to Denver-based Idea Marketing, promoting a program to pay creators in the state $400 to $1,000 a month to promote the vaccines. Is that a good idea? Like, are people really going to get caught up in this? It's insincere. Like, that's the thing. Advertising and this kind of promotion, you know, whether it's advocacy or if it's something that's for social cause, you know, this kind of thing is something I'm a little bit afraid of. Listen, if the influencers are able to make money off of it, what's going to happen is that if they're not sincere and they're just there for a money grab, which is where these influencers are going to be in some cases by doing this, then you know what? They're going to probably be looked at differently, and they might lose the appeal, or they'll just be appealed by those that'll say, you know what, you know, that's what they do with the cash grab. I understand, let it be. So they'll just take it from there. Another story from thedrum.com, also talking about the rapidly evolving world of influencer marketing and where that is coming from as well. This story comes from Publicis Health, worldwide leader in healthcare communications, specializing in marketing, advertising, consulting, market access, and brand management. Now, they kind of go back to the very beginning of the idea and the thought process of influence. Going back to the early 1900s and Dale Carnegie and the infamous book, How to Win and Influence People. For Dale Carnegie, influence was a skill he used to win friends. For the stars of Hollywood's golden age, influence was currency sold in the form of endorsement deals, from everything to cigarettes to chocolate to heavy machinery. And alongside the rise of social media heavyweights, influencer was added to our modern lexicon in 2019 as something of a catch-all for a new generation of brand ambassadors. In other words, the use of influence to drive behavior and desire has been around in different iterations and conjugations for generations. As we enter the second decade of the new millennium, social media platforms have changed and evolved, and the technology and the pandemic have shifted how we work, live, and connect with one another. My point here is that now that we have kind of changed our outlook, and we have also changed a number of things on how we live and how we handle things, that social media has been at the forefront of all this, at the help with the behest of the influencers. Our world and the way we interact with it has changed, and so has the elusive definition of influencer. No longer synonymous with wealth and celebrity, influencer marketing has evolved beyond product placement or endorsement of a brand by a popular person. The best influencers today have evolved beyond and are focused not on fame but creation and curation. We have seen the first fundamental, maybe even generational shift in the influencer landscape. Now, this Drum article really says a lot. Like, they're hitting the target pretty solid on what they're saying. Here is something I've been saying for months. Celebs are passé and content creators are here to stay. Keep that posted on your wall. Content creators, very important. Celebs are passé, content creators are here to stay. Modern creators are not interested in being popular and not defined by the number of followers or likes. In 2021, after years of testing and feedback from users and content creators, Facebook and Instagram rolled out a feature allowing users to hide their like counts across their platforms instead of getting hung up on the number of followers or likes a particular creator has. Savvy marketers understand real influence derives from engagement and not from an inflated number of followers and likes. A content creator, therefore, is someone who has the power to influence the perception of others and motivate their curated audience to do something because they have the contextual credibility and ability to deliver the right message to the audience-preferred method: video, blog, meme, podcast, at the right time. At their core, content creators are defined by engagement and their ability to drive thinking and behavior. The consumers who gave rise to the hashtag unfiltered movement, driving a wave of makeup-free posts from everyday women and breaking down the maquillage masks of celebrities, claiming to be relevant, are now in charge, taking hold of the influencer economy and demanding authenticity, experience sharing, and genuine engagement. What a great point said. The glamour, the appeal, looking at the beautiful people, looking at the people that are just so interesting and how they're able to be built up with what they wear, what they put on. The mask of celebrities claiming to be relevant because we also saw them exposed. The makeup off. They're not at the behest of the agencies or the publicity people because they were kind of away from projects. Weren't able to make money. Did not have a project that we're promoting or putting together or working on. Another point from the Drum. What an amazing story. This is, man, they are just hitting this on all cylinders. This story says a lot. I might even have to come back to this story someday. We're living in a consumer-driven platform world that motivates thought and behavior, so our measure of success also needs to adapt. Gone are the days of using professional photography and perfectly placed products to push any and every brand. Consumers want to hear the truth, the unexpected, the inspiring, and the barrier-breaking from content creators. Those are the mommy bloggers, youth activists, travel enthusiasts, life experience people who are the connected opinion leaders of their chosen vertical. For my end, I'm a wrestling analyst. I'm a podcasting expert. Things like that. Their followers know it and count on their honest, first-position, real-world experience and trial and error learned experience to tell them not necessarily what to think, but what to think about, and if given a given brand is worth their time, brain power, and hard-earned dollars. While many marketers are tracking sales as a success measure, the evolved marketer is placing more importance on brand awareness, customer loyalty, and engagement. Your most valuable metrics are no longer final sales, but the cumulative, human-centric actions that build toward converting leads into lifelong customers. The new data points for success include traffic metrics like audience reach and quality, engagement rates including interactions, shares or comments, and lead-generating activities such as site visits, newsletter signups, and content downloads. There's more to be said here, but there's a lot. I mean, there's more to be said, but this story is just so comprehensive. And I might just come back to this. I might just come back to this next week because there's more to be said, but I just don't want to go ahead and lay it all out right now because there's just so much more. Because there are a few other stories I want to get into, so I'm going to come back to this story next week and bring it up because there's just so much more. Honestly, if I kept going on with this story, then I would go ahead and forget to take the two stories that I meant to talk about last week because I didn't do those. And I don't want to miss out on those again and say, oh, I'm not going to skip these stories one more time. I don't want to do that. Only fair that I get to them as I promised. Now, while this story really did put a whole lot of emphasis on what the influencer marketing movement is doing, then there was this report that came out last month that talked about the key weaknesses that could lead to the fall of influencer marketing. And this came from the chief growth officer of the Out Loud Group, a full-service influencer marketing agency creating and executing strategic campaigns at scale. There we go. Bradley Hughes wrote this. So in the story, he says, the answer whether to influencer marketing is likely to be toppled depends on how you're looking at the industry. And then he talks about safe ground. What's safe in the industry? Third-party advocacy has been around practically forever. Traditional radio has had disc jockeys advocating for local restaurants for generations. Third-party advocacy probably isn't going anywhere. As a society, many of us are hungry for people we trust. And this puts influencer marketing on very safe ground. But the danger zone, they say, is trust. As long as creators are partnering with brands they truly like and support and are willing to regularly turn down financial opportunities to stay true to their audience, the industry will likely continue to thrive. But I think they'll just kind of filter each other out. You'll feel like the ones that are just truly just looking for a cash grab, they'll go away because they'll just lose their audience. I really think that's what's going to happen. What's really scary is that creators who are focused on their financial gain in the near term rather than the audience's trust have the opportunity to really bring into question the validity of the whole industry. How can you tell whether this has started to happen for a particular creator? Well, this is usually a terrible idea for very obvious reasons. Reading the comments on sponsored content can give you a great idea of where a particular creator is with their audience. If it feels off, smart audiences will quickly flag it. And creators could lose revenue opportunities in the near term, and their ability to monetize their audience's trust may go to zero in the long run. To ensure a long and healthy future for influencer marketing, both creators and brands will need to play a part. If you're a creator, consider being more selective about the brands you choose to work with. Consider what you will resonate with your audience. If you're a brand, consider being more selective about the creators you work with. Find creators who fit the profile of your target audience and who might have become customers anyway. So the initial intent was to kind of like tell you, hey, influencer marketing can go bad. Well, what Bradley says is true. He's not wrong. So a few other stories I want to bring up here that are pretty interesting and important. Talk about influencers, where they talk about celebs are passe, content creators are here to stay. How about a show that's being brought back probably at the most inopportune time? MTV's bringing back Cribs. It just returned to television 20 years after its original debut, but wealth porn, as they call it, may not have the same appeal to a new generation. So this week, as we record, MTV's Cribs is coming back to television. On to MTV. September 12th, 2000, MTV Cribs premiered its first episode. At that time, it was a novel entry point for eager viewers who wanted to create a voyeuristic peek into the lives of the ultra-rich. For 30 minutes, fans could see celebrities flaunt everything, from fleets of rare luxury cars to custom-made furnishings, then watch them open up the refrigerator to show that, despite all that obscene wealth around, they were just like you and me. But the show has experienced a series of short-lived spin-offs and curated revivals as it largely lived in reruns consumed by a new generation. In July, the network announced the show would be officially relaunching with a list of new celebrities that set the show off their lavish homes. The revival is yet another sign of the thriving trend of early 2000s nostalgia taking over the industry. From the sometimes questionable fashion statements to long-over celebrity couples finding their way back together after years apart. When Cribs first debuted in 2000, Survivor had just completed its first U.S. season. Reality television had just gotten started. Jessica Simpson, the Osbournes, the Kardashians, all those reality shows were still in the future. The Real World technically predated both Cribs and Survivor in 1992, was a whole different kind of thing in the reality TV space. With shows like Cribs, reality TV in its modern iteration was just getting started. Reality shows have become more popular than ever, and the rise of social media has allowed celebrities to provide unlimited access into their luxury lifestyles. In addition, influencer culture has turned social media into advertising for rich public figures and the aspiring rich to sell extravagance to their followers daily. So MTV Cribs can be a bit redundant in this modern era. Despite the number of notable celebrities that have appeared on the series, there have been controversies around stars using homes that were in their own and renting cars just to take advantage of the show's massive reach and project a certain luxurious image. Today's inclination towards fakeness is just further compounded by influencer culture, with social media personalities regularly being accused of everything from renting out luxury shopping bags to staging setups of private jets just to increase their engagement and follower count. Thanks to the internet, our obsession with wealth porn has only been transferred to a different medium. But more conversations on wealth disparities within the country, there is more of a critical lens on the discussion of wealth and how much one person should have. Wealth porn has transformed culture, as social media inundates us with influencers who make thousands of dollars by posting lavish insights into their lives. However, the difference in new data and studies that shed more light on the growing wealth disparities within the United States and the dispersion of that information worldwide to the public, thanks once again to the internet. They go along about wealth and this and that. I'm not going to worry about that part. They conclude saying that the new iteration of MTV Cribs will ultimately be met with longtime fans who love to indulge the early millennial nostalgia that is so popular right now. The revival will also be dependent of a new generation of viewers who have become more critical of wealth disparities and how it fits into economy and recovery from one of the worst disasters in the country's history. But, viewers are not going to care about that. I don't think so. Let's go into a story on music, because I haven't talked much about music as of late, but let's go ahead and talk about that. The music industry is neglected as DJs. New tech will change the game. The world's three major labels, is from Rolling Stone, Universal, Sony, and Warner, are finally partnering with a new streaming service to ensure that artists are paid when DJ edits are played. So this new partnership is Beatport, a DJ hub and long-established leader of the dance music scene, finding the genre-agnostic beat source in 2019. They've been trying to secure a proper deal with the labels for about a decade. And now there's a new streaming arm called BeatSource Link, which will include an exclusive library of about 100,000 artists and label-approved tracks. These DJ edits, which are not full-on remixes but adapted versions of songs, were never licensed before. So the entire music industry, which was outright booming at the end of the 90s, suddenly faced the first of its kind death rattle just a few years into the 21st century with Napster and MP3 piracy. So this is supposedly fixing essentially a 40-year problem. There was a tectonic shift, and now literally the last dinosaur in the culture that still uses MP3s. Now, here's some of the things that he's talking about in this historical recount here of what's being done now with this new partnership. Back when radio was king, record label promotion departments would give DJs multiple copies of a record, and the copies would have a clean, dirty, instrumental, and a cappella version. Radio DJs in some contexts needed the instrumental from a current hit mix to mix into the next song. The host would talk, and then they would drop into the original. Sometimes they need to transition to change the tempo. When a DJ plays a fast song after a slow song, they have to have a way to get there. But in today's world, superstars like Drake can tweak their songs up until the last minute, delivering the record hours before it's due. So the promo department doesn't have time to send DJs their clean edits, for example, so DJs do the rush to do the work themselves. With BeatSource, the labels can send all the necessary edits to one place with a few clicks the moment they approve them. BeatSource's team can then upload them to the service immediately. So every time a cooperating DJ uses an edit, BeatSource's tech tracks the activity, ensuring rights holders are paid fairly. And if the label doesn't want to make all those types of edits, BeatSource can do it for them. Very interesting. So it's to give the DJs everything they need as fast as possible in order to boost the song's exposure and top charts, even if it means leaving the illegal executives who go over all the back-end fine print in the dust. And this is to counteract what was going on before. What were DJs playing all this time prior to? They were getting their music. If they weren't emailing with the record executives, they'd get it from Spotify, Amazon, iTunes, and similar platforms. That's what the problem is. Ever since streaming services came about, they just weren't available. They were accessible in the black or gray market. Everyone knows how they're getting them, but there's no structure. Nowadays, it's not uncommon for a new indie artist to forego a physical product and take a DIY approach, uploading singles directly to streaming platforms. And since the radio campaign is no longer a make or break necessity, it's not surprising they're not creating alternate versions. So for DJs to be able to go and take the songs and play them without having to wait for vinyls or for MP3s or whatever to be supplied to them, now DJ edits are available. So now, for those who can be playing the music anywhere, now they have a way to get to it. To help promote, I'm guessing a lot of dance music, and a lot of the music is going to get promoted as a result. So this is a very cool thing. I'd like to see where it goes and what comes of it, as a matter of fact. Now, there's one other story I wanted to bring up last week. Here's my last story that I meant to get to last week. K-Rock DJ, KROQ DJ Kat Corbett, exiting the station. She reflected on 2 decades of the station and the struggles facing alternative radio. She hosts a daily show on SiriusXM's Lithium channel, so she's not, out of the business altogether. She's not on the beach. She says that, quote, "I think the audio sound space is so amazing right now. Podcasting, fiction podcasting, this stuff is blowing my mind. How would I love to put some of my stories in that arena?" She's releasing her debut novel before the end of the year. She served as a weekend fill-in host at KROQ 106.7 FM, in addition to her signature weekly show, Locals Only, featuring unsigned and upcoming LA bands. She followed the famous Kevin and Bean show from 2005 to 2020 in the middays on K-Rock. She had been pondering an exit from K-Rock for a long time, even before the recent departures of Ted Stryker, Kevin and Bean themselves. And she said that, quote, "I was ready to go then because, frankly, I reached the top of my game. I never thought I'd be somewhere for 20 years. That's crazy, let alone K-Rock. I'm somebody who really likes to work. I like being creative. And again, it's like, what else is there for me to do? I'm going to retire at K-Rock? That's not a thing. You grow out of the demo. I knew there would always be a time. It was definitely happening right before COVID. And obviously everything fell apart. And so I already had a home. So it was kind of like, while I was still there, just ride it out." She says that alternative radio in general, not just K-Rock, and talking across the board, every single outlet is in a state of they don't know what the hell is going on. I think they're deluding themselves if they think the kids are coming to radio. Kids don't know what radio is, and they don't care. And so now you're alienating your audience by getting rid of all music. And there's this thing, and again, across all the board and all alternative, where they're frankly pushing hip-hop and pop as alternative. Because those who choose genres, that's where the money's at. But the genre is just demolished. I don't know how to fix it, but it's not just its own thing anymore. She's right. Alternative needs to be gone, and rock needs to be a format once again. Now, she's not knocking the idea of mixing or evolving genres, but there's very little new rock to mix in the other stuff. Who's the next Green Day? Who's the next Nirvana or Rage Against the Machine? Where's that? I think rock is in a hard place right now, and the lack of that to mix in like current rock is really the problem. Of course, the demo that grew up on alternative rock is still the demo, still listening to the radio. And it's a struggle of maintaining that core audience via goal-based records, yet attempting to evolve the sound to stay fresh and bring in a new generation that has put the format in such a crisis. Quote, "A lot of times people get mad and they yell and go, K-Rock sucks, or I haven't listened in years. And the reality is, it's because you've gotten older. We're not programming to you. We're programming the 18 to 34. You've literally outgrown the demo. So, of course, it's not going to resonate with you. It's not that the place sucks. It's just not your thing anymore. Frankly, it's like I've outgrown it.
I have other desires and passions, but for all the times that I've been there and the family I've made and the experiences I had, it's been an incredible place to be. She finishes up in the story saying that, quote, it was the island of misfit toys. You often hear that phrase about when baseball is working, how it's just magic. It's like music. It's very much like that in radio. We had all known each other for so long. You didn't have to think about anything. You knew people were going to get the job done. It was a handoff like in the middle of chaos. We made it all work. It was a beautiful thing. It was really exciting and fun, and we laughed so much. But little by little, you start losing pieces of the band, and then it doesn't have that feel anymore. That's just a natural progression, especially if you've been together for a long time. And so that is pretty well put together in what she's trying to say. That radio has lost its way and where they're going with things, and she's absolutely right. And it's a medium that's out of touch. And I can appreciate some of those DJs now that are trying to embed themselves onto social media, and at least, especially on the TikTok, trying to get an audience out there, trying to go and do lives, and trying to build an audience for themselves. But they're influencers just like everybody else. But can they, make themselves such a point? Like, really, I'd love to see where influencers, if I had the chance to train influencers and get them to be on radio and learn how to do it. Maybe there's some that could handle doing long form content and find a way to do that, but it'd be so tough now. I think radio still has a place for a lot of different reasons. So does television, so does cable. But right now it's a tough place because influencers and social media have sucked up all of it. Streaming itself also sucking up all the air of dominance that traditional media has. The counterculture has taken over. The counterculture doesn't listen to the radio. Just saying. Okay, we're going to leave that there. Thank you all for listening into the program. Really appreciate you finding the show, and I hope you let people know about the show. And if there's things you want to hear about in the program that I should be talking about, email me, kingofpodcasts@yahoo.com. Hope you'll figure that out. And also, if you ever want to go work with me on any products that I might be doing, feel free to go to my website, kingofpodcasts.com. And of course, for the show here, go ahead and look for me over at broadcasterspodcast.com, where you can find everything that's going on with the show. So I'm going to leave it there. Come back next week for another Broadcasters Podcast. And until then, remember that content is king, and the control of your content is in your hands.
Thank you for listening to the Broadcasters Podcast. Find all the links to subscribe to the show by going to broadcasterspodcast.com. And don't forget to check out the King of Podcasts wrestling program, the Wrestling is Real podcast, exclusively at wrestlingisreal.com.